Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hogs back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right with Carlson, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Barrett. He scores! Off the face-off! Up it's Eminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it, shoots one, bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski, another jam on the shot, turning and firing. They go! They score! Score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from Kramfors, Sweden.
And Calgary, Alberta.
And welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 67 for Friday, December 10th, 2021. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring the discussion of remote monitoring and farming parameters like soil moisture and precipitation, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast. My name is Sean O'Brien from StatsTrack and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And I'm Paige Siewert of Full Press Hockey.
Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're new to the Calder Farmstead podcast, we're going to preview some of the matchups for the upcoming weekend for you. We both watch a lot of AHL games. We're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out. So you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes today reading about the birds aren't real conspiracy theory. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time talking hockey with us? And let's kick it off right away. Obvious note here, Cece is not here for this episode. He is on vacation in Florida. So I managed to pull, someone from our previous episodes who's been a guest on the show before with Paige, who for Full Press Hockey typically covers the Stockton Heat and Calgary Flames prospects here and there. She is going to be riding shotgun here as my co-host for the evening. But let's get right to it because there hasn't been a whole lot of AHL news. I mean, the Cleveland Monsters and Columbus Blue Jackets agreed on an affiliation extension, which, yeah, that's all the news. That's 100%. That's just the headline. That's all you need. It's a pretty dumb move for them too. So let's get right into it. Let's get right to our preview. As always, we're going to go east to west. We'll start in Lehigh Valley. Paige, kick us off here.
All right, so we've got Lehigh Valley against Cleveland on Saturday, and then on Sunday they're playing Hartford. So going big picture home team here, let's try and be positive. The Phantoms are failing a lot in a lot of areas, but they're still 5th in the league in penalty kill. And why is that?
Well, there are two ways that you can really pad penalty kill stats. Number one, you can't give up power play goals if you don't take penalties. And the Phantoms are 9th in the league in fewest times shorthanded. So the surest fire way to not give up power play goals is to not give the other team chances to do that. And I'll be honest, that's a surprising stat when I think about it, because I think of the Phantoms as being a physical team, and yet they are still 9th in fewest times shorthanded. That definitely will help them. The other trick to padding power play stats is you can't give up power play goals if you don't let them enter the offensive zone. The Phantoms play primarily a 1-3 forecheck, which is one of the 3 common penalty kill forechecking schemes. So there's nothing really unique about it, but they do an excellent job of executing it. They force play to the outside through the neutral zone. Their D step up aggressively at the blue line to break plays up, which is something that I have hounded other teams for. Their defensemen lag too far back off the blue line. They don't have a tight enough gap. The Phantoms do a really good job of that. They force that 1-4 in the 1-3 forces play to the outside really well, and they basically just kind of gang up on the outside entries and do a really good job of forcing dump-ins and breaking up plays at the blue line, which is surprising because I don't think of their defensive core as being the fleetest of foot, but for some reason they are really good at defending their blue line on the penalty kill forechecks. They also play, a pretty standard check press or wedge +1 system as their in-zone penalty kill tactic, which, again, not unique. Just about every team in the league plays some version of that. And theirs isn't terribly aggressive per se, but I would like to see them kind of dial it up and let their rover in that format be a little bit more aggressive and pressure the puck more. If you hang around all the way to the end, we're going to talk about Stockton's penalty kill as well. And theirs and the Lehigh Valley penalty kill is very, very similar, but theirs is a little more aggressive in zone. But I will say the Phantoms for their penalty kill are very well prepared. You can see them execute details well, getting sticks in passing lanes, getting bodies in shooting lanes. They're very disciplined in both of these. You don't see them take a lot of bad steps or bad strides. You also see something we burned a team last week for. I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, we burned Ontario for doing this, is that a lot of their guys that are in the wedge, in that triangle in the front of the slot, they were really slow to kicking out and picking up and to becoming the rover and being able to get in shooting lanes. The Phantoms don't do that. Those guys are on it. They do a really good job of being aware of where the play is going. And you can see evidence of a lot of film work being done by them. Their penalty killers are very aware of the power play that they're facing and their habits, their tendencies, how they like to set up the offense, where they like to go with the puck. And they do a really good job of playing almost an exploitable way. I've seen a couple of instances where they put sticks in lanes where I'm like, no, you need to cover the other passing. And then they get a breakup because they knew it was going there. They're seeing the moves ahead and they can kind of play exploitably in some spots where they know they won't be exploited because they know the other guy on the other side so well. And that's a real good credit to the coaching staff in Lehigh Valley, which is not something I thought I would be saying for a team that has 3 wins after Thanksgiving. But their assistant coaches and their video coach have done a very good job preparing those penalty killers. And even through like call-ups, like Max Willman is one of their better penalty killers. So is Morgan Frost. Both of them have spent time in Philadelphia. And yet that penalty kill still continues to carry on without them. It's one of the few areas that seems like it doesn't matter. They have a next man up mentality that actually works. So it is one of the few areas in which you can credit Lehigh Valley that they prepared well, they execute well, they're disciplined, and they get the job done.
Yeah, for sure. And you even mentioned Max Willman there, and just kind of a note for this game coming up, or these games coming up. He's once again up with the Flyers, which it's kind of tough for him this season because they've yo-yoed him back. Now this is his 3rd time. And do you think he'll stick around at the NHL level for a bit, or do you think he's doomed for the too good for the AHL title and not good enough for the NHL tag?
I don't think he's doomed with that tag because number one, I don't think he's too good for the AHL. He has 35 points in 67 career AHL games, which does not scream to me, I don't belong here. That very much is in the neighborhood of, yeah, you're good, but let's not get overexcited here. That's not to say he doesn't have parts of his game that he doesn't have parts of his game that I like. I do actually really like Max Willman's game. He's good defensively. He's a solid penalty killer. He has some speed to his game. A lot of the ways that he scores, though, aren't going to transfer to the NHL. He's had success beating AHL defensemen on the rush with his speed, but he's not fast enough to do that to NHL defensemen. He's a decent shooter, but he's not good enough to beat NHL goalies cleanly from mid-range, where he's rifled a few past goalies at the AHL level just because he's able to overpower them. He has decent puck skills and a good hockey IQ, but not to the level that makes him even above average in the NHL. He's not able to really just lean on one skill, nor is he terribly good enough to be able to stack them on top of each other. Like I always think of Matt Barzal. Matt Barzal is not elite at any one skill that he has, but he's really, really, really good at putting all of his like B+ attributes right on top of each other and using all of them at the same time. And that makes him elite. It's his ability to put all of them together. And Max Willman also doesn't have that. At 26, he's unlikely to develop much more in these areas. That doesn't mean he can't, but from a historic perspective, there aren't many guys who went from half point per game player at the AHL at 26 with limited NHL playing time to playing, hundreds of NHL games. That's a story that maybe describes a handful of players, and I can't even think of one off the top of my head. Mainly what I think is going to establish Max Willman as potentially an everyday NHLer, or one with at least somewhat of an NHL career, is in the defensive end and on the penalty kill. He's not getting that opportunity with the Flyers when he is getting called up, But that's not to say that he can't or shouldn't have been. I mean, they did just fire their coach. So the idea that some mismanagement of the roster happened is certainly not without merit. But if Max Willman sticks on an NHL squad, I think it's going to be as a fourth liner in a defense first role that allows him to, use some of the smarts that he has on the penalty kill combined with a little bit of foot speed to make things work. Something like what you see from Zach Aston Reese in Pittsburgh, or maybe not the early parts of Carl Hagelin's career, but some of the latter years where he's like a guy that maybe puts up 10 points in 82 games, but great penalty killer, good forechecker, and in certain spots he can be put on the ice and be a reliable player for a coach. I think Max Willman at his best could squeak out a career kind of like that, but it's getting hard to see because a lot of times those roles go to guys that are that coaches already have. Like they're not often given to younger guys and they can stick in those roles. It's usually a role that the coach, like the new coach for the Flyers, whenever they hire a new one, I'm assuming it's not going to be Mike Yeo. Whenever they do hire a coach, you'll probably see that role will either go to, a veteran that's been with that coach for a long time, or a younger player who's already shown excellent ability at the NHL level in those roles. And neither of those are Max Willman in particular. And that's not, again, to say that he can't be, but he's already fighting an uphill battle in what is just good old fashioned coaching bias.
Totally.
All right, let's seeing as Lehigh Valley doesn't have one opponent and we're only going to focus on their side of things, because trying to pull two opponents and all of that stuff is, well, it's a lot, and we have lives.
Lives, what are those?
Yeah. I actually do allegedly have one. So let's talk about keys to the weekend here. For me, against Cleveland, Lehigh Valley needs to be all about pressure. Pressure. We've seen the Monsters fold under pressure from teams already this season. They did it last week in spectacular fashion to Milwaukee. Milwaukee forechecked them to death and made sure the Monsters were never, with space and time to be able to move the puck. I don't think that Lehigh Valley can do exactly what Milwaukee did because they don't have the horses. But regardless, I think that they need to be a team that plays in the face of Cleveland at every opportunity. You need to make sure that Cleveland, who is a team that if you let them, will use the speed they have to burn you. So you need to make sure that they don't get those opportunities where they're getting, multiple seconds with the puck to make the right decision. If I'm Ian LaPerriere, I am pressing them to make sure that you are always on puck carriers. You need to put bodies on puck carriers, get sticks in lanes, and make sure that you have pressure on them at all times. The second key for the game against Cleveland, it says, is if you have the puck and you're in the offensive zone somewhere, shoot it. I am not normally a big proponent of the quantity over quality aspect of hockey and offense, but the Phantoms are likely to see Jet Greaves in their game based on kind of the way that they've been balancing starts. And despite what Jet Greaves' AHL stats page will show you, I do not believe that he is a very good goaltender. He has a limited sample, and he did give up a 5 spot to Milwaukee on some quasi-questionable goals. Phantom shooting luck has been nothing short of awful this season, and at some point, it has to turn around, right? Right? I mean, I think an ECHL caliber goalie in net, I'll take my chances and just throw as many pucks on him as I can. Not to mention, Lehigh Valley has certainly needed more shot volume, if nothing else. Against Hartford, they got to start hot. And I know every team wants to start every game hot, but Hartford's playing its first game since November 27th. Are they experiencing rink rust? Do they have, a full set of conditioning? Do they maybe get a little lazy on the time off? Are they feeling effects of COVID? I don't know. I don't know the answer to any of that, but I know if you let them, find their sea legs in the first period, they're probably going to burn you. So to me, it would be important that any opportunity you have in that game, you seize upon. And the first 10 minutes of that game, I'd be telling them again, pressure, get your feet moving. If we can build a 1-0 lead going into the first period, going into the first intermission, that's a very good place to be. If Hartford is, feeling the effects of the layoff at all. And the other key I would say against Hartford is pray to the hockey gods that Tyler Wall gets the start. Keith Kincaid just got called up. Adam Huska is pretty good. Tyler Wall, despite his name for being a goaltender and a pretty sweet looking mask, not the greatest goaltender in the Atlantic Division or really in the league. Someone who I can absolutely trust to let a bad goal go by here and there. So if you can get a Tyler Wall start from Hartford and you can, be on them in the first 10 minutes of the game, the Phantoms have a legit shot at winning these games. But let's get into picks. Paige, who do you like? What do you think?
Well, I mean, since it's been a while for Hartford, I could see the Phantoms pulling out a win against them. I know when you're not doing so hot, you kind of need to come at these weekends pretty hot. So, hoping I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt there and give them a win on Saturday, and then kind of turn it around and fall to Cleveland on Sunday to give them the split there on the weekend.
Swap days there. Cleveland is Saturday, Hartford is Sunday, but
Yep, my bad. Gotcha.
no worry. I am actually
stick to the teams though.
No, I got it. We got there. It's okay. I think for me, I am actually going to take the Phantoms on Saturday against Cleveland. I still think that there's too much going wrong in Cleveland right now. The games I've watched them play, they've looked lethargic at times, and they've looked very much trying to play down to their competition. And while, yes, no offense to the Phantoms, that is quite a step down from what the Monsters are capable of. They seem to continue to fall into these traps. And they've had this weird thing where apparently their Cleveland's head coach, Mike Eves, is not behind the bench, but is like coaching from the press box and coming down to intermission, which is weird and definitely has led to some coaching moments that I question. So I think I'm going to take them against Cleveland on Saturday. And while I like your theory about, when you have time off and that rink rust, I still think Hartford just has too many horses to be held down in that game. I'm gonna take the opposite of you there. The model, however, is clearly against Lehigh Valley. It has Cleveland as a 55.4% favorite on Saturday, and Hartford is a 57.9% favorite on Sunday. So we at least have some faith that Cleveland can, that Lehigh Valley can squeak one of these out. But the computer does not. So
yeah, we could be in for a sweep.
We could
in a good way.
Well, we're going to head to break here. After the break, we will get to Rochester and Laval. If you're just here for Lehigh Valley, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever listening to us from. We will be back on Tuesday to break down these matchups. You're probably going to get that as it happens. Also, check us out on social media. Links to all of that can be found in our Linktree page, which is scrolling down below here. But for those in the audio version, it is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills. We will be right back.
All right. Thanks for joining us back from break. If you're still with us, we're going to take a look at the Laval series. So on Friday, they're at Rochester, then they have a day off, and then they'll be at Hershey on Sunday. So taking a look at Laval here, what do they got going on? So Laval is needed to score 4 more goals to win 7 of their last 9 games. So quite a bit of scoring going on. This isn't a team built for winning 6-5 games like that. So what's going on with their defense?
I mean, really at every strength, what we're seeing here, whether it's 5-on-5, 6-on-5 with a goalie pulled on the other side, or they're killing a penalty, they're defending the net front with the precision and attention to detail of the Arizona Coyotes accounting department. It's really just embarrassing how many net front goals have been scored from guys who are either completely left unguarded or forwards who are just winning battles for position at the net front at will and getting to rebounds and loose pucks easily. I saw what had to be a moment that if JF Hull was ever going to have a brain aneurysm, this would be it, where Anthony Lewis scored a power play goal literally on an island in front of the net. There wasn't a Laval, Texas had won a puck battle in the corner where all 4 of Laval's penalty killers were on the boards. And Anthony Lewis is just literally sitting at the hash marks, hanging out, waiting. Puck comes right to him and he buries it. And I'm like, I'm sure that must have been a video that when he saw the replay, he just lost it. Because that was like, even I had to pause and was just like, wow. And I mean, that's obviously a kind of one-off, but there are so many goals that they're giving up where it's just a guy is loose in the front of the net, or a rebound that's not even Caden Primo's fault. Like, he kicks it to a good place, but they can't win the race to that rebound, or they can't find a way to win a net front battle, and they're just giving it up. Or they're letting passes go through the slot area, which is also super bad. It's not just like, oh, this is just a penalty kill thing, or it's just an even strength thing, and they're figuring it out in other places. They're doing this up and down the ice at any strength at any time, and it's not working for them. The other thing too that's not been great is they've given up a fair number of goals off the rush that originate off of both forwards and defensemen making errors in coverage in the neutral zone. And you can get away with those kind of moments when you have great goaltending, but Caden Primo and Michael McNiven ain't that. You're getting slightly above league average goaltending from that tandem at best, and that's been true for several seasons now. But part of the problem in both cases, at least to my viewings, has been the play of Laval's centers. They're not giving enough support to defense in zone. They're too aggressive on the forecheck, and they're getting caught deep in transition where there's three guys below the dots and the other team's coming the other way. And they basically have a 3-on-2, 4-on-2 play developing because you got caught super deep. They're also looking to leave the defensive zone too early. So if their defense gets a turnover and is looking to make the breakout, instead of swinging low and guarding the dot line, they're just jetting out of the zone and, hoping that they can recover a glass and out. If I'm JF Houle there, I'm looking to change that approach from our centers because I can make small tweaks to that while still playing inside the system that I've built if I'm their coach. Those are not huge enough things where we have to shift to a different system or a different technique, which coaches will basically never do. This is a small tweak that you can make to instruct your centers. You need to give them more support. You need to stay in the defensive zone longer. You need to not get caught deep. Those are three things that you can apply to any forechecking system, any defensive zone scheme that you want. But those are some of the bigger problems. And I think if they can fix that center play defensively, they can start to see some of these, free runners in the slot go away, or some of these, 3-on-2, 2-on-1 rush chances go away, or at least start to trim down a little bit, because the amount of which they're giving up those chances and, those pucks go in, they're high danger chances for a reason. Those can be trimmed down and you can start to see Laval make a turn here. Now that's still giving them a lot of credit for seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, what I'm seeing being accurate, which again, I don't watch every game. I don't break down every game for Laval. So I might've just picked a couple bad ones, and that they're able to make those changes and that the players do them. So a lot of things still up in the air. It's not always as easy as it seems. Like, oh yeah, why don't they fix the obvious thing? Well, it's more complicated than that. But that is definitely a way I would adjust going forward for them.
Oh, totally. And kind of as we take a look at the team as well, we can go double down into some of the players in specific, like Mathias Norlinder. He's just sent down from Montreal, which is probably for the best because he's struggled with the Canadians, like most of their roster this year, which is unfortunate after seeing last season, but it is what it is. He's only played 4 games in the AHL so far. So what's his game like, and what should we expect when he gets a little bit more comfortable?
I mean, he's an offensive talent for sure. He skates really well, and he utilizes his skating well, which sounds like an obvious thing. Oh yeah, if a guy can shoot well, he shoots. If he skates well, he skates. Well, you'd be surprised. But he understands that he has a good speed to him, has good edge work, and he uses that really well. He reads forechecking pressure well, and usually doesn't fold when there's a forechecker on his back. He can find ways to, move the puck safely, as well as beat forecheckers with his feet or with a clever pass. He makes good first passes too. Like we saw the other night, he scored his first goal. He's an above average shooter. He's not a great shooter because he's a little smaller, so he's not going to be able to put, those Chara size and weight on it, but he does have a pretty zippy wrist shot. He's good at getting it through traffic. His defense has been hit or miss. It waxes and wanes throughout his career. He's never going to be terribly physical because he is on the smaller side, but he occasionally will lack defensive awareness. He won't scan for threats over his shoulders as often as you would like from a defensive perspective. He's not a good net front defender, but he's not a terrible one. If he was a great one, that would be a perfect time for Laval, as they need some better net front defense, but he's not going to be great at that. His version of defense, though, is a lot more aggressive and non-traditional. He's looking to attack forwards in the neutral zone, in the offensive zone, and jump breakout passes, get sticks on plays before, a forward has time to turn his head around. He's looking to make the play defense. He's looking to play defense in the neutral zone, in the offensive zone, break those plays up before they have a chance. One of the big things that needs to be ironed out of his game, though, is he plays with a lot of swagger. He's very confident, and there's a lot of reason for that. We just, pumped his tires a bunch here, but he also definitely takes risks that aren't necessary. And I think that comes from a little bit of overconfidence in his game, and he needs to learn risk management better because while he's very confident in his play, he takes risks at times that are unnecessary, and those lead to bad turnovers, him trying to make stretch passes and hit home runs on every pass he makes out of the zone. Those seep into his game a little too often for my liking and probably drive some coaches nuts. Now, yes, he can balance that with some of the other skills that he has, but those are something that, when the games get tighter in the playoffs or in the NHL, when you're not going to be able to just outperform forwards at that level, you're not going to be able to make those risky plays or make those risky stretch passes and get away with it. You're not going to be able to balance those scales as much. And that's something he's going to need to take out of his game. He has a lot of positives though, but he's very much a work in progress as a player. And that's probably why he struggled in the NHL. He's still very young, and playing at NHL speed when you've come from juniors is a leap that very, very few players can make. I mean, if you even look at number 1 overall draft picks, most of them, their first year, they look terrified because they're not used to the game just moving that fast. And that definitely is something that will help him coming down to the AHL level, I think. Hopefully the Canadians don't yo-yo him to death, but I don't hold my breath on that one. I've seen this movie before. But that's what I would talk about from Mathias Norlinder. I like him, but there are definitely pieces of the puzzle that need to get sawed down a little bit so they fit in neatly.
Yeah, definitely. And he'd be a good player to watch too, because when guys get sent down like that, you never know how they're going to react to it. If they're going to kind of pout about it for a bit, or if they're going to use that time productively.
Or if Utica is going to tweet about them directly.
You're like, okay, at me next time. They literally will. All right. So going into more details on the weekend here, what do you think are some of the keys to the weekend for their series here?
So against Rochester, number 1, it's actually funny. I think they should do the opposite thing in both games. So against Rochester, shut down the neutral zone. Rochester is torching teams on rush chances, and they are a team that's built for 6 to 5 games. They have puck-moving defensemen. They have forwards who can move, that have high-end puck skills. You need to force them to play dump and chase as often as possible. You need to not give, JJ Peterka and maybe Jack Quinn, as he sat out the last game or two, but Peterka and Krebs and their just ability to fly through the neutral zone and get pucks fed to them by their pretty good puck-moving defensive core. If you let them do that all night, you're going to have a bad time. So my goal for them would be not necessarily to go forechecking heavily in the offensive zone, but you need to make sure that that neutral zone is a sludge area, that you're forcing dump-ins more often than you're letting them carry the puck in. Against Hershey, I would do the opposite. I've been preaching this strategy against Hershey all year. Their blue line is, by and large, big and slow. I would use speed. I would look to counterattack. And if you're going to boat race a team here, I think Hershey is the team to do it, especially if you get Phoenix Copley, who, again, is not an elite goaltender at this level. He's barely an average one. So if I'm going to get into trading chances in a game this weekend, don't do it against Rochester. Do it against Hershey.
You make great points there. We looked over kind of at Laval as a team there, went into some details about what they've got going on with players, went into some keys to the weekend. So let's make our picks. I'm going to have to agree with you with what you had to say there with Rochester. If Laval's not having that great of a year, or not, I feel like I saw a lot of Laval last year in the Canadian division when they were playing Stockton a lot, and I found them to be a very big and strong team. So I know they are capable of elevating their game. I would like to see them hopefully take one of these games this weekend, and I think based off of some of the details we went through, I think Sunday would be the day to take it. I could see them coming out a little slow against Rochester on Friday and maybe not winning that game, and then going for the split. So Rochester for Friday and Laval for Sunday are my picks.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Rochester seems like they are the anti-Laval. They're a team that is looking to go racing and play 6 to 5 and play fast. And Laval has struggled to do that, even though that's what they did so well last year. But new coach, new system, and hopefully the institutional changes the Canadians made this week by basically cleaning house will trickle down and help Laval too. But I'm not holding my breath for that. But I think Rochester is they have too much to contain. I don't think Laval is going to be able to do it. So I'm going to take Rochester on Friday. I still don't think that Hershey is at full strength yet. They still have guys that are up with the Caps who are out injured, at least as far as we know. I mean, in this league, one Friday call down is all it takes for me to look stupid Saturday morning. But I think I think that game favors them at least a little bit more. I know it's on the road and far from home, and they're going to probably have a stay on the bus or, at a Holiday Inn Express the night before. But I think I'm going to go with you and say Rochester Friday and Laval Sunday. The model actually agrees with us. So congrats for winning against Rochester and then losing to Hershey, because all of us are on the same side here. Rochester is a 53.1% favorite over Laval on Friday, according to the model, which I'm surprised that number isn't larger, but I'll take it. Laval is a 52.2% favorite over Hershey on Sunday. So everyone here is in agreement, which of course means it's got to go the other way.
There's gonna be a sweep somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
We are going to take a break here. After the break, we will get to Manitoba and Grand Rapids. If you're just here for Laval, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to listen. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from, so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We will be back Tuesday morning to talk about the recap of these games, so you probably want to catch that if you're listening now. Also, check us out on social media. We have a lot of fun memes, including one about Eagles goaltender Justus Anunen and Justice for All. Links to all of that can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills. We will be right back.
All right, welcome back from break, everyone. The next series we're going to take a look at is Manitoba versus Grand Rapids. They will be playing on Friday night and Saturday night in Manitoba. So big picture here, Manitoba, they're doing all right. They're 13-6-1 to start the season and second in the Central, so a little better than all right, I would say. Seventh in the league by points percentage, so they're top 10. Good for them. I don't think people outside of Manitoba as contender, though. I don't think they view them as a contender, though. Should they, though?
I think they're close. It's one where, like, I want to say yes, but I have some reserves, and we'll get into that here. Offensively, they have enough depth that even when the Jets need a body, they can handle it without shifting guys in the lineup too far over their heads. They have a lot of guys that are versatile in the lineup that can play multiple roles. I think of that as like the Brian Rust Swiss Army knife, where, when the Penguins have something going bad for them, they can play Brian Rust on the top line and it works. They can play him on the third line and it works. They can, stick him out there in the penalty kill and it works. They have a lot of guys like that, like Cole Mayer and Jeff Malott, that it seems like they can just be a Swiss Army knife for that team, that when they need to plug a guy in a spot, they can find a way to make it work. They have a lot of versatility on offense. Defensively, they have a ton of depth with 4 of the top defensemen in the AHL, and we'll talk about more of them in a second. In terms of coaching, I'm not all in on Mark Morrison yet. He hasn't done anything to make me think poorly of him, but hasn't blown me out of the water with crafty tactics and stuff like that. But he's also, been doing this job for all of like 2.5 months. So me taking a wait and see approach seems very fair. But so far, I have not been underwhelmed, and that's usually a good sign. There have definitely been coaches who have also are in their first year who already am like, Jesus, what's this guy doing? So he is not yet in that category, which I think is usually a good thing. Not too many coaches get to really do shocking things in a positive way in this league that early on. My biggest concern regarding the Moose, though, is Mikhail Burden. He's either been great or awful most nights, with very few nights in between. He's basically, it seems like every night he's either one of the reasons they win or one of the reasons they lose. His first 6 games this season are as follows: 4 goals on 25 shots, not great. 18 save shutout. 5 goals on 32 shots. 22 save shutout. 3 goals on 35 shots. 4 goals on 17 shots. That's a lot of, that was bad. It's been like that for most of the season. And despite Arvid Holm getting some time in, the Moose still play Burden way too often for my liking, a point that we have quite literally beaten to death a little bit on the show, and that's fine. But when it comes playoff time, is Mikhail Burden a goalie I can look at in a game 7 and say, I trust him to win the Moose that game? Because I don't, at least not right now. He showed me flashes of that guy, but that guy is, here today, gone tomorrow, back the next day. And I think that's the big thing that sinks them. The Moose have a lot of the right pieces in place, and Burden could still be one of those pieces. He's shown that he's capable of playing at a high level and, making highlight reel saves as well as making saves look easy. But it's the games in between those that concern me because there are just too many of them. Should he be able to string together more consistent starts? We can have a different conversation. But right now, I think the Moose are close to a contender, but they need Burden to be as good as he has been more often. Personally, I think that comes from resting him more and playing Holm more often. And Holm hasn't shown to be a liability in net. Like, he's been fine. Even last year when they had Archer Seeloves as a backup and he played one whole ass game, like, he was fine. And this year he's shown, well, maybe they should probably played him more. Like, Mikhail Burden is definitely showing fatigue still. And we're in early December. That's not good. There's a lot of hockey left. They need to let him get more games in between. Or let Holm get more games in between, let Burden stay fresh, because they're going to be leaning on him when it comes to the playoffs, which they will undoubtedly make at this point. So they need him to be rested, and they're not doing that. And I think that's what's taking its toll. And I'm going to stick to that point until someone shows me something else.
Well, with that, do you think it's mostly physical, or do you think there's some mental aspect of his game that's lacking, that's kind of preventing the consistency there?
I mean, consistency in goaltending is always going to have some mental aspect to it, because goaltending, even at the highest levels, is a very mental position. And I don't think that he's lacking the mental capacity to be that goaltender. I think there are definitely sometimes he makes mistakes, but he's young. This is the AHL. Mistakes are going to happen regardless of what you do. But I think a lot of it is you see those mistakes come more often when he's, playing his third game in a row, or playing the second game of a back-to-back, or in moments where it's very clear, like, he's just tired. And I understand, and we've had this conversation too about Mikhail Burden in the past, where it's like, I understand that every time the coach asks him, like, hey, do you want to go in tonight? He's always going to say yes. Pretty much every starting goalie is probably going to say that. They all have that same mindset. Like, I don't care if they know it's a lie. One of you needs to be the adult in the room and tell him, like, I understand you want to play every game, but no, we won't let you do that. You need to rest. We need to make sure that you are rested. And you could tell me that you are the most rested human being on this planet. No, one of you needs to be the adult in the room, and it needs to be Mark Morrison or the goalie coach in Manitoba. One of them needs to step up and, like, stop him from, stealing the starter's crease. Arvid Holmes played like 6 games this season. 6. That's it. That's not enough. You need to rest Burden, because the moments I've seen him look mentally rusty or sloppy or lazy have been mostly what I think are fatigue induced. I mean, some of it sure is just going to be off nights. Like, even the best goaltenders, Tim Thomas and his Vezina run, that one year where he was just the most insane goaltender ever, he was only still putting up above league average save percentage 68% of the time, give or take. Like, 30% of your starts are going to be throwaways, and that's a good goaltender. Like, it's fine that he's making mistakes some nights that aren't fatigue induced, but I want to keep those fatigue induced, fog games to a minimum if I can. And I absolutely can. And they just don't.
Something to keep an eye on going forward, that's for sure. So we've talked about goaltending. You mentioned we had some defensemen to talk about, so we can circle back to that. So the strength of this Moose team is the defense. Chisholm, Kovacevic, Gavakny, and Gavanki and Hinola have all been fantastic. What do you think their keys to success have been?
I think it's that each one of them brings something different to the table that's a high-end aspect. Chisholm's biggest value is in transition, his ability to recover dump-ins, loose pucks, and immediately get those pucks up ice, whether it's through his feet, skating the puck out, or with a crafty pass. He's able to neutralize forechecking pressure in an instant. He doesn't, panic. He has poise. It doesn't matter if there's a forechecker on his back and another one coming at him. He finds a way to make a good play with the puck and gets the Moose moving the other way out of the defensive zone smoothly every time. Gawanki's biggest value is his shots. Man has a rocket cannon for a shot. And it's not just him standing at the blue line, seeing if he can break the speedometer on the speed gun. He's smart at activating off the blue line, finding better shooting space than just hurling pucks from distance uselessly. Because it doesn't matter if you can shoot it that fast. ECHL goaltenders can stop a point shot from Zdeno Chara if they have, 150 feet between them. But he's also smart at being a trailer on the rush and timing his not just fly up and down the ice, but to time his rushes so that he has that open space to use that shot more. It's not just about he can hit the puck really hard. He finds good spaces and good places to shoot from. Heinola's biggest asset has always been his brain. He's an intelligent puck mover, and he uses deception to pull defenders to him and then will dish into the passing lane that he now willed open. That's a big skill. He makes great passes, and he's rarely caught making mistakes with the puck on his stick. Every coach will always love a defender that maybe doesn't make the sexiest passes, but makes ones that don't cause turnovers, that don't make mistakes. They can consistently rely on to go out there and not screw up. And Heinola doesn't just not screw up. He makes right happen where it shouldn't. And that's impressive. Kovacevic's biggest asset, even though he's found pockets of offense this year, has been his ability to defend. And not that the other three don't defend well, they defend well in shades, but when they're up joining on the rush, activating off the cycle and so on, you need that guy that you can trust to have your back and take care of business on the back end. And that's what Kovacevic has done a good job of. A lot of his assists are secondary assists, so we don't view those as necessarily repeatable. Like, it's good for him, and he's still making good plays that earn him those assists, but it's not a primary puck mover, offensive playmaker kind of assist. He's had a couple goals this year, and, good bounces happen to everyone. I still don't think of him as being an offensive asset per se, but it's good that he can chip in and step up and has that ability when necessary. But his best asset is still an ability to defend. And when you put all four of them together, they become Captain Planet or Mies Knight or whatever. But that's, I think, what makes them special is it's not just four overlapping circles in the Venn diagram. You have basically almost four like separate circles that all cover something the other one doesn't, and that you can keep throwing different things at the opponent every night. And they have to prepare for more and different looks because each defenseman brings something different to the table.
Definitely, and that makes them hard to play against. Anyone that can say that a team that's going to score 5-6 goals a night, like we mentioned earlier, is usually going to win games, but defense is the other half of the game. So looking on the other side of it with Grand Rapids, there's some things that they're going to need to do in this series as well if they want to be successful. I did notice a little while ago you tweeted out a graph of a rolling 2-week PDO chart for Grand Rapids, and it shows that Grand Rapids riding a high PDO number for several weeks in a row, and they still are. You'd mentioned they won 3 of 8 in that span, and that was a bad sign of things to come. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so since November 9th, the Griffins are now 5-6. Their rolling 2-week PDO average has been well above 100. For those not familiar with PDO, I highly recommend you check out our episode 0. It's a little video that'll help explain some of the advanced stats we talk about, including PDO. But in very short, brief terms, it's a measure of puck luck, where a PDO rating of 100 is where you want to be. That's dead even luck. Anything even 1 or 2 points above 100 is very good luck. 98, 97 is very bad luck. Here's the thing, though, as I'm sure we're all familiar, luck is not sustainable over the long term. And when you're getting good puck luck, like the Griffins have in PDO terms, and you're not turning that into winning streaks, that's bad. Because when the luck pendulum swings the other way, which it inevitably will every time. Look what's happening to Utica now, what happened to Henderson last season. Both rode PDO benders for as long as they could, and eventually they had to pay the piper, and bad things happened. Now, the fact that they were able to ride those PDO benders to wins and wins and wins and scoring and all these beautiful things, and the Griffins aren't. That's where I see the problem here. It's not that they are on this PDO bender and that's bad. I mean, it's not great, but they're not getting W's out of it. They're 5-6 in those 11 games since November 9th. They should be doing way better with that high of a PDO, but that's not what they're doing. And if you look at the PDO charts on my Tableau page and the wins and losses for those teams in that stretches, they align pretty well. And that's not to say that roster construction, call-ups, injuries don't affect games or don't affect the outcomes of these games or how lucky a team is. They absolutely do. But hockey is a game played with a 3.5 bouncy disc on the slickest surface we can make. Luck is always going to put its thumb on the scale. And if you're struggling to win games now, when bounces are looking to be going your way, you have to imagine you're going to struggle to win games when they're not. And that's what it's looking like in Grand Rapids. They're getting good bounces in terms of puck luck. Pucks are going in. They're 16th, I think, in goals for per game, but 28th in shots. So when they are shooting, they're going in. They've gotten pretty good goaltending, too, from Calvin Pickard. So when those start to not go their way, when they start getting a little bit of bad luck, I think that team is going to crater. And that's not good.
Yeah, I wonder how long that luck holds up. Because, I mean, we're at what, just over the quarter mark now? So
Give or take.
we'll
Yeah.
see. Yeah, we'll see what happens down the stretch, I suppose. Just after going through the overview there, just more detailed into the team, looking at some of the players there. Jared McIsaac in particular, he's currently rated in your model in the 15th percentile and a replacement level grade. He's had a pretty rough season. Do you think that's a little too harsh?
Yes, I think that is harsh. As I always tell people, the model does a good job of capturing players roughly where they are at that moment. But players are always getting better or getting worse. They're injured or healthy. Like, a lot of things go into that. But even I will disagree with the thing that I program quite often. As you can see when we pick these games and we say where the model is, I don't even agree with it on that level. So yeah, there's room for error. It's only a machine. But make no mistake, I do think he has had a rough season, that there's something wrong with him. Now, I never expected McIsaac to be a high-level offensive playmaker, even at the AHL level. So not seeing a flood of points by him isn't a huge concern. McIsaac simply isn't a high-level playmaker. We talked about this concept a long time ago, at least it feels like a long time ago, when we talked about Jet Wu and Abbotsford, that there are possession pucks and attacking pucks. Basically, your goal as a player should always be to improve the condition of the puck. A possession puck is one where you have it on your stick, but you have defenders all over you. You just want to do something that keeps possession of the puck. Next open guy on your team, just get him the puck, cycling down the wall, a pass to the point, something like that. An attacking puck is when you have time and space, where you can pick your head up and make a move and try and, get a scoring chance, create offense. Jet Wu's biggest problem in Abbotsford is that he turns attacking pucks into possession pucks. He never tries to make offense happen. It's usually just, oh, that guy's open, he gets the puck. Jared McIsaac is the same way. He's not someone that you see when he has an attacking puck on his stick, attack with it. He just maintains possession a lot. And that's okay. Like, that's not what makes his game exceptional and makes him an NHL prospect, but that is why I don't expect a lot of points from him, because it's not who he is. McIsaac has always been a strong skater, though. And I really have not seen that from him in my viewings this season. Maybe I'm catching the end of road trips or back-to-backs or just off games. But the ones I've seen, he looks very lethargic. He's not moving his feet like I've seen him do in the past. He's getting burned in foot races by guys who aren't speedsters. Maybe there's a lingering injury at play here, which would be really unfortunate, as McIsaac has certainly had enough injury setbacks to last a career and then some. But watching him play, something is off. It's affecting his skating, and it's definitely affecting his intensity. He just came back from shoulder surgery, and he plays a high event, fast paced kind of game. That's one of the upsides to him that makes him an NHL prospect. His physicality, his ability to play with pace, his ability to, if not attack with the puck, at least make good first passes. And most of all, skate. And he has not looked like that guy this season. He looks, for lack of a better term, like he's hungover on the ice. And for any of you who have ever had hangovers the next morning, you feel lazy. And that's what he looks like. And I don't know if that's an injury problem or, he's battling through a knee or an ankle or whatever, but this has not been the same guy I've seen in previous seasons. And I don't know what the answer is, because, like I said, it looks like someone else wearing his jersey.
That's too bad. As soon as you mentioned there's such a noticeable difference in skating, the first thing your brain goes to is injury. So, I mean, if that is the case, hopefully he gets some time to rest up, or because I just hate seeing players go for the majority of the season with this lingering injury when they could have taken 2-3 weeks back when the games didn't mean anything, instead of playing halfway through the playoffs with a very major injury. So if there is something like that going on, hopefully he's able to manage it. And I mean, hopefully he comes back to the player that he was and not the player that he is right now.
And it wouldn't shock me too if he's pushing through an injury, because I wouldn't blame him. I mean, he has had such bad luck when it comes to injuries that take him out for seasons. Like, I think off the top of my head, he's missed almost 2.5 seasons. He's 21. 21-year-old kids missed like 2.5 seasons due to big injuries. He's just had shoulder surgery last year. The year before that, he had surgery, I think, on the other shoulder. So, like, if he's like, I don't care, I can play through this, because he's just itching to get in games and, get the puck on his stick, I wouldn't blame him for that. But, like, it's hard to watch because it's not the player that I'm used to seeing. And I really like Jared McIsaac. is like a staple of my NHL franchises.
Well, hoping for the better for him going down the stretch. And if there is work that he needs to work on there, or there's some sort of injury that's going on, I'm hoping that he's able to get some rehab for that or find a way to play through it. I say cringing. But going into the weekend, what are some things that are going to be the keys for these teams?
Number one for Manitoba, and this sounds silly, but silly and obvious advice also is still good advice. You need to staple a penalty killer to Riley Barber. Riley Barber has 4 power play goals for the Grand Rapids Griffins this season. The rest of their active roster combined has 4. He's pretty obviously the trigger man on the power play for them, which, I mean, again, if you've watched 10 seconds of their power play, duh. He also is one of the best power play one-timers in the league next to maybe Charles Hudon. But you need to put your best shot blocker on his hip because I'm a big believer in taking away the thing that makes you the most dangerous as a coach. If that's Riley Barber shooting power play goals, I don't care if you beat me with Taro Hirose or Ryan Murphy on the power play. I will not let you beat me with Riley Barber. You're going to have to use something else. I'm not going to let you just continue to do the obvious. Like, if I'm playing the Capitals, I will not let Ovechkin do Ovechkin things. I don't care if that opens up Oshie and Backstrom and Kuznetsov and Carlson. I will not let you do Ovechkin things. They cannot let Riley Barber do Riley Barber things. The second key for Manitoba, I would say, is be physical. You are the bigger, stronger, heavier team in this matchup. The Moose are 6th in the AHL in active roster average weight. Grand Rapids is in the 20s, I believe. They need to finish checks cleanly, finish checks often. And I do mean cleanly. We don't need to be turning this into a rodeo like Iowa did the other day. Don't do that. Be physical, finish checks cleanly. You are the bigger, stronger team here, and playing like it should not be asking much of you. For Grand Rapids, in the wise words of the renowned philosopher Brian Johnson, shoot to thrill, aim to kill. Manitoba is one of the best teams in the AHL at shot suppression. You're not going to get many good looks at the net. You're going to need them to make those shots count. So don't be throwing pucks away from the point or, just shooting into the mass of humanity in front of the net and crossing your fingers. You're going to need to work for better scoring chances because Manitoba is not going to give many of them to you. You need to make sure when you do get one, you make them count. So don't throw away pucks, because you don't know what to do when the puck comes to you. And just instead of, turn it over, shoot it on net, take a second, make a play, study more film, understand what you're supposed to do. But you're not going to get a lot of shots in this game, so you need to make sure they go in. Second key for Grand Rapids here is win the first period. Again, that sounds like obvious advice, but Manitoba is 1-7 trailing after the first period. They are 12-1 in all other outcomes of the first period. So that first period is a huge, huge deal to getting Manitoba to not play their game. If you can go into the first intermission with a lead, a 1-0 lead, that's what you should be trying to do. You need to start fast. You need to make sure that, you're chugging Red Bulls in the pregame warmups, that you had a good pregame meal. You need to make sure those players are fired up in the first period because Manitoba is deadly when they walk out of the first period, not behind. They're 12-1 in anything besides a losing effort in the first period on the scoreboard. You need to make sure you hold that first period lead because it has been what's defined Manitoba's season so far.
Well, it's so easy to look at that. Like, that's a very interesting stat to bring up as well, because it's very easy to look at a final score and see kind of what had happened, but to actually take each period for what it is, especially the first period, it's easy to throw some dinner in the oven or something and miss the first 20 minutes of the game, but that's part of the most important part of the game. So that will be interesting to see in these games this weekend and see if Grand Rapids is able to hold that stat line there. But we've looked at both sides of this matchup going into the picks for the weekend. I might be using my Canadian division bias a little bit here, but I'm thinking that Manitoba takes the sweep this weekend. I just think their defense is too strong for Grand Rapids, and it's going to be hard for them to get pucks on net. No pucks on net, no goals. That's usually how hockey works. So I'm picking Manitoba for both.
I mean, for me, the biggest upset here is that Canada closes at 5 p.m. and this game starts at 6 p.m. in Manitoba. So I guess Grand Rapids is spending the night and traveling back on Monday, which I mean, I guess that's okay, but I honestly don't trust Mikhail Burden in what is almost assuredly back-to-back starts. And for that reason and that reason alone, I'm going to take a split here and call Grand Rapids to win what I'm assuming is going to be split starts for them. I imagine they start Calvin Pickard in one and probably Bratstrom in the other, which is not good because Bratstrom's terrible. But I'm going to take Grand Rapids to win whichever game Pickard starts. I'm going to, condition my pick on that. But I don't trust Mikhail Burden enough for two good games in a row. I think Pickard will take one of them and Burden will take the other. The model likes Manitoba in a sweep. They are the 54.9% favorite in each individual game. So you and the model page are on the same page. I am doing my own thing. There we go. All right, we're going to head to break here, and after the break, we will get to Stockton versus Tucson. If you're just here for Manitoba and Grand Rapids, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We will be back on Tuesday to break down these games that happened. So you're probably going to want to hear that if you're listening now. Links to all of that, plus all of our fun social media where we do the memes, can be found in our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. If you can't spell the Calder Farmstead, it's probably somewhere on the page that you are listening to us from. Figure it out. We're going to pay some bills. We will be right back.
Welcome back from break, everyone. Next series we're going to take a look at is Stockton versus Tucson. So they're playing on Friday and Saturday. It will be a road game for Stockton. They're heading over to Tucson, Arizona. So taking a look at Stockton here, if you haven't been keeping up with them, my only personal opinion is you should be. They may not have looked like much the end of last season, but this season they are on a roll. The last game, if you want a little context, was 10-1. For the good guys are Stockton to me. So that is not a score you see in hockey very much. So right now they're tied for fourth in most penalties taken per game in the AHL, which is a little surprising, but they also have the best net penalty kill percentage in the AHL. Seems like no pun intended here, but it is playing with fire. How do you see that, Sean?
It's funny because I see their penalty kill and it looks a lot like Lehigh Valley's, which for those of you who aren't familiar with Lehigh Valley's penalty kill, that's okay. Not a lot of games for Phantoms on the West Coast. I completely understand. But that's, if you just look at the standings and see that, you probably think that that's an insult, but it's not true. Lehigh Valley's penalty kill is actually real good. And watching theirs and Stockton's in both prep for the show, it was alarming to me. I'm like, wow, it's like I'm watching the same team. They play a very aggressive forecheck. Like we said with Lehigh Valley, the best way to not let teams score power play goals on you is don't let them get in the zone. Stockton uses a 1-3 forecheck, and they do so very well. The 1-3 is not some, tactical revolution. It's been around for hundreds. It's been around for decades, but it's well executed by them. They force play to the outsides. Then they have their defensemen step up and basically cause a pinch point. And their defensemen do a very good job of defending the blue line. And that seems like such an innocuous thing. But man, let me tell you, there are a lot of teams, especially shorthanded, that straight suck at it. Hi, Charlotte. How are you? But they do a very good job of making sure teams never get set up in their power play to begin with. They clear the zone and they can't get back in. That's one way to kill off a lot of penalties. The other thing that's really good about them is they use the standard penalty kill structure called the check press or the wedge +1. Basically, they station three guys in the slot in like a little triangle formation, and they have one guy who kind of roves around and chases the puck. And that guy switches depending on where the puck is. But they play a much more aggressive version of that, where they are making sure that they have a player on the puck carrier as quick as they possibly can. And that's not something all teams do. And it's something I always yell at them for not doing. It's one thing we talked about Lehigh Valley. It's probably the only difference between them and the Phantoms penalty kill is they're more aggressive in zone with how much pressure they're willing to put on puck carriers. And it works for them. And that's kind of why I want more teams to do it. They're making sure that they're taking away as much time and space as they can from whoever has the puck, forcing them to make decisions quickly in the hopes that basically they will overhandle the puck or screw up or whatever. And most of the time it works pretty well for them. This leads me to believe that that's a sustainable, penalty kill number from them. again, they are playing with fire a little bit in that they're taking, they are the most penalized team in the AHL in terms of power plays given. Maybe not in terms of raw penalty minutes, but in terms of power plays given, they're fourth in the AHL. That's still a lot though. But their ability to defend their blue line well, to forecheck well, to use an aggressive version of the check press in zone that they're pressuring the puck carrier, forcing turnovers, and then punting the puck down the ice where they have to gain the zone back again, which is not easy for other teams. The other thing that they do really well is they have 3 shorthanded goals in the season, and they've had a lot of good, odd man rushes and springing guys for breakaways the other way. A lot of times I refer to this as power kill concepts, where you're looking to generate offense from the your shorthanded opportunities. You get a shot block and you see a guy just go streaking down through the neutral zone because he knows that he has a chance for a breakaway or for a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-1. And that's something, if you're the power play, you have to make sure that you make safe plays. You can't take as many risks as you normally would because you know that they're going to try and score a goal shorthanded if you give them an opportunity. And not every team is like that, and not every team has the talent to do that. It's another thing the Phantoms do well. The parallels here really are pretty interesting. But Stockton has done a great job of that, incorporating those power kill concepts where they're looking to stretch the ice and create offense if they can, and doing so in a responsible way that doesn't burn them on the way back, where they're giving up odd man rushes coming the other way. They do a really good job of dialing it up to 11 when they need to, and then dialing it back to make sure that they're still applying pressure in zone on the forecheck without getting caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And it's really impressive from a tactical perspective and from an execution perspective to watch. I know it takes a certain level of hockey nerd to appreciate penalty kill tactics and things like that, but you kind of know if you are one, and I are one. So, but let's flip the script here a little bit. Let's talk about some individual players instead of just the team as a whole. So many members of this Heat are looking like rock stars. It's easy to see why they've done so well this season. One premier prospect, however, has not. Let's talk about Connor Zary, 2020 24th overall pick by the Calgary Flames, had 7 points in 9 games last season in the Canadian bubble in the AHL. I guess Canadian should be in quotes for Stockton and not bubble, but whatever. He went back to Kamloops in the WHL after those games in the A. Put up 24 points in 15 games as captain of the Blazers, which, yes, is impressive, but also he's an overager. That's pretty much expected of you. This season, he has 3 points in 10 games, despite, everyone else on the team just racking up points and goals and assists wherever they can. Paige, what's going on with Connor Zary?
So Connor Zary only playing 10 games so far. There is a reason for that, and it is an injury related reason. He did play in the rookie camp for the Flames, and he was looking just like the same guy that we saw in the Canadian division last year. He was putting up points. He was playing on the top line there. He was the best guy on the team. But in the last rookie game, he blocked a shot. And that looked bad on the screen. It was one of those ones where you're kind of wait to see if it's going to be just a bruise or it's going to be a little bit more serious. And in that situation, it was more serious. It resulted in a fracture that prevented him from going to play on in the Flames main camp that he would have been a part of, would have got some preseason action as well. Missed out on that. We didn't get updates until the camp was pretty much over. So we stayed up with them. He has since returned to the Heat and has gotten some games in. I believe he came back early November. But he also isn't sliding back in the slot he was playing before. He was playing alongside Matthew Phillips and Adam Ruzicka. So when you're playing with the best guys on the team, if you want to stay in that spot, you got to elevate your game, and he was. Since then, Jacob Pelche has taken a spot, and if you've looked at Pelche's numbers, he's sticking around there. Ruzicka's up with the Flames right now, but even now, Zary hasn't earned that spot to be top line yet. Mitch Love, the coach of Stockton Heat, knows what he has. I just think Zary hasn't fully brought his game back up to speed after suffering that injury. He is picking up his points. It did take him, I think, 3 games before he put up any points. If you see any of the Stockton Heat articles written by pretty much anyone, a lot of the fans are asking about Zary because it does seem out of the ordinary from what we know of him. I'm hoping this is temporary because I would like to see the Zary that we saw last year. I also think there might be a little bit of adjusting to a new role, especially after recovering from injury. I think Zari's used to being the best guy on the ice, and right now he's not. So trying to adjust to being a little bit further down to the depth chart might be something he's not used to. And I think if he gets a spark here, he might need to elevate his line mates because I mean, it's not there. He's not playing like Connor Zary, and he's a lot of nights go by where he's not very noticeable. And that's not something I would have guessed back 6-8 months ago. So hopefully it is temporary. It's only 10 games, but 10 games is quite substantial. So I'd like to see more out of Zary, and I do still have a lot of hope in him, and I could see at least it's a full season this year. So there is still the other half of the season for him to hopefully bounce back. And he is very close friends with Jacob Pelche, so maybe he can take a little extra ice time with him and they can figure something out between them. But for Zary, I'd like to say that hopefully that's a temporary thing, but it is very obvious at this point. But I would attribute most of that to injury.
I will say one thing, and I haven't gotten to do this a lot this year because I've really liked Mitch Love and some of the coaching decisions he's made, some of the schemes he's approached. But one of the things that I in the way that you kind of discussed that I didn't like is I understand, you get hurt. Obviously, you have to come out of the lineup. But for me, and don't get me wrong, Jacob Peltier, excellent player, deserves to be in that spot. But I don't like taking where guys basically injure their way out of their spot on the depth chart. Like, if it were me, and this is maybe just a personal difference, or maybe there is still some rehab that needs to be done, and that's why he's there. Once Connor Zary came back in the lineup, he goes right back to where he was, and he has to play his way out of that spot. And if that's what he does, that's what he does. But for me, I'm not willing as a coach to let a guy injure his way out of his spot on the lineup. I understand Jacob Peltier, has performed incredibly well in that role, but I think if you explain it to both of them, that they'll see that that's fair. And that when the shoe is on the other foot and, Peltier gets injured, that he doesn't have to start back on the fourth line or anything like that. So I don't necessarily agree with that move from Mitch Love, unless there is, of course, more to it, that we're giving him a chance to, rehab a little bit, playing 10, 12 minutes a night, maybe second power play unit, as opposed to his normal go because he's not ready for that yet. I would understand in that case, but Mitch Love, sir, not appearing in this episode for us to ask questions of. But I do, at least as it's presented, not totally agree with that. Although I will say 10 games still not a huge sample, but one where if he were doing things that were noticeable on the ice, if he was still, making scoring chances happen or driving offense, I would be less concerned. But that's not what we've seen. We've seen him by and large not be a factor in the minutes that he's playing. And that's it's not just that he hasn't been scoring at the pace. It's that he hasn't looked like he's even had a chance to score at that pace. And that's the bigger concern. And yes, 10 games isn't a huge number, but not seeing the spark also concerns me. But hopefully it is just shaking off some rust or, still feeling your way back through an injury and not something serious. Fractures are not only, even after the bone heals, you still see players not feel 100% in trusting that they're, healed. I've seen guys who broke wrists or, damaged their shoulder, and they weren't the same player right away because it seemed like some part of them mentally was not ready to trust that they could take a hit or, pull a wrist shot or what like that. So there could be a lot of things going on here, but I definitely want to see at least some progress for Connor Zary to see the spark again, to show me the magic. And hopefully we get to see that this weekend.
I agree 100%. And I mean, Stockton got a coaching change over the offseason. Cale McLean got the promotion up to Calgary. And that could be a reason as well. It's just if Cale McLean was still here this year, maybe that would have changed. But yeah, Mitch Love started the season with Jacob Pelche, Matthew Phillips, and Adam Ruzicka in front of him. So that's who he went with. And I could see the other side of it where it's like, if it's not broken, why fix it? But he should have also been aware of what was going on last season. So maybe when Ruzicka comes back, there might be some shuffling. But for now, it looks like it's going to stay for the time being. But to flip it around, we can take a look at Tucson as well. So Tucson has been wildly inconsistent since last season, and they've actually been labeled by the Calder Farmstead as the Jekyll and Hyde team. Since Thanksgiving, though, they're 4-1. Do you think we're beginning to see more of a consistent Roadrunner team, or is this just a mirage?
I think that's going to depend a lot on what the Coyotes want to do. And I don't just mean pay their bills. They have yo-yoed Ben McCartney and Victor Soderstrom hard this season. And they've managed to keep those two. If the Roadrunners manage to keep, Wings McCartney and Victor Soderstrom on the roster with Fasching, Jan Jenik, and Matthias Mikhail, and keep Prosvetov and McIntyre in tandem, they should be able to find consistency. And yes, that's asking the Coyotes to not call up 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 guys. Yeah, that's asking a lot, but to at least allow them to have some consistency on that roster, I think would be a huge step forward to them finding consistency. Yes, consistency will bring you consistency. I know I'm a genius, but I think that's been a big problem of it is Arizona has just been plucking guys up and down, left and right, and leaving, the coaching staff in Tucson to try and figure out how to scrap together a roster with, 4 of their top players missing on any given night, and not even the same 4. And then you get guys getting yo-yoed and they come back and they're like, I don't understand why is this not working for me? Which is why you don't yo-yo prospects and why Arizona doing this is not going to be an effective strategy for them or any team doing it. But it's asking a lot, but I think they could, if they could get those pieces to actually, spend some time in Tucson. It's a lovely city, I hear. So that shouldn't be, a huge ask of them. And if they can get that, I think you will start to see consistency from them, because first and foremost, it comes from the fact that, like, when those guys are out of town, they're putting, ECHLers out in the roster, and the talent imbalance is just not big enough for the shoulders of 3 of those 8 to carry, especially if, McIntyre and Prosvetov aren't in town and they have to go with Josef Koshinash, who has been atrocious this season. Like, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's probably why you see a lot of the Jekyll and Hyde that you get, where they'll go from winning 4-1 to losing 4-0 in back-to-back games. And they do it all the time. But the fact that you are seeing, Soderstrom get going, McCartney at least sticking around a little bit, the rest of the roster kind of finding its groove, I think that is at least a hopeful sign. Maybe not a predictive one, but I never want to rob a team of their hope that things could turn around. And this one at least shows good signs of that.
Oh, definitely. And going back into more detail into some of the players on that team too. You mentioned Matthias Mikhail. He's been a driver for offense on their team. What have you seen from him that stands out in particular?
We've definitely seen growth from him for sure. I mean, nobody has ever denied that Mikhail has always had skill. That's undeniable. You watch the kid with the puck and he's been able to do magic things. But the problem that has always been the big thing that dogs him is his work ethic, his pace of play, and looking like a lot of times he's just playing pickup hockey out there, where he doesn't play inside the scheme and just kind of floats and does what he wants. And the biggest problem that he's had on top of all of that is he's a smaller guy, and the book on him was out for a long time. You'd see him, enter the zone on the rush, not be able to get to the inside, pull up, and basically just pray that a trailer is there or he'd be throwing the puck away. And while, yes, there are moments in which he doesn't have a choice and that's the play, I've seen moments where his game has evolved in those regards. He's been able to create space, find the middle lane on rush chances. I don't ever think he's going to be a burner by any means, but I've also seen his skating take strides forward, pun intended, to the point where it doesn't hold him back anymore. With that said, we did say in the preseason that he was a skilled guy who had puck skills, he could shoot, that he was a sleeper for us, that could end up being someone in Tucson's top 6 and blossom if he could take steps forward in those areas. I think that's what we've seen, at least in my viewings in limited times. I'm not ready to stamp him that he's cured himself of these, just poor effort problems, but it's looked better. And for a lot of guys who suffer from just poor effort night in and night out, Nick Merkley comes to mind in San Jose. You don't see those being able to be turned in, 20 games, 30 games in the AHL. And to see those improvements from him, I think that's a big step forward, because his talent's never been something you could, just deny. When you watch him with the puck on his stick, the kid has moves, he has puck skills, he can shoot. It's just a matter of getting him to drive play with those. Like we talked about earlier, just because you have attributes doesn't mean you utilize them well. And that's kind of been his downfall, but we've seen more of that. We've seen that growth. And I think that means we're going to see him stick in the top 6 there, even when they get reinforcements and guys healthy, that he still has found a place there and established that. And that's huge because Arizona has not had the best track record of developing prospects. So to be able to see that big of a push forward from Mathias Norlinder in this short a time, I think is significant.
For sure. It would be a good guy to keep an eye on this weekend, that's for sure. So we've talked about Stockton, we've talked about Tucson, we've talked about Zary and Mikhail. What are going to be some keys to this weekend for both sides?
Again, I'm going to have to go with at least one obvious piece of advice here, but that doesn't make it not true. And that's play 60 minutes. I know. #analysis. Brilliant. But
Hockey Insider.
Yeah, I know. I'm so brilliant. It's amazing I'm not on a coaching staff of a professional team. Play 60 minutes. My God. But what
a concept.
Yeah. Tucson has struggled to find consistency in their performance. And the easiest way to do that is to start one game at a time, one shift at a time. I remember there was a famous locker room speech given by, I want to say it was the New York Islanders coach, and they were playing a Game 7 in Pittsburgh against Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr Penguins. And the coach comes in and he points at a guy and he goes, "Can you play one shift to a draw with Mario Lemieux?" He goes, "Yeah, I can play one." Points to the next guy. He goes, "Can you play one shift to a draw against Jaromir Jagr?" And he goes around the room and they're like, "Yeah, I can play one shift. I can play to a draw." He goes, "All right, guys, we got the first period down. Are you ready for 2 more?" Like, that's all it takes. One shift at a time, baby steps. And that's those are the kind of little things that Tucson has needed throughout last season and into this one. They've had games where they look like they could light the world on fire, and then they had games where they look like they lit themselves on fire. It's been a struggle for them. So playing 60 minutes, one shift at a time is one brick that they need to start building the house. I will give you at least one good, hockey tidbit here. One of the things Tucson needs to do is not get over aggressive on the forecheck. Stockton loves some odd man rushes, and their D are not shy about putting stretch passes from goal line to far blue line. You cannot get caught deep. This team is too good at those plays. You have to make sure that you have guys back and bodies back, because if you're giving up odd man rushes, this team is going to torch you. That's why they are the Heat. So if you allow those kind of moments to happen, you're going to have a bad weekend. Tucson, if you're going to succeed, you need to play 60 hard minutes, and you need to make sure you have bodies back on the forecheck. So one obvious piece, one actual inside piece of advice. On the flip side of that, if I'm Stockton, I am not afraid to trade chances with this team. If Tucson wants this to be, even if I draw a Dr. Jekyll appearance from Tucson, if they want to play track meet hockey and just go back and forth and trade odd man chances, I say let them. Let's go racing. I have a lot more faith in the offense in Stockton than in Tucson as a whole. Both sides have talent up front, but Stockton has more of it. I also have a lot more faith in Werner and Teen Wolf than I do Prosvetov and Kozhinash. If we're going to swap odd man rushes and I'm Stockton, and I'm Coach Love, I say let's go racing. We'll trade.
Yeah, you make a good point. And the way Stockton's been going too, you're probably going to see both those goalies because they've been splitting up their time pretty well. Everyone wants to see Wolf, but Werner's been doing a great job as well. And I think this is the first time that they've had consistent enough goaltending in quite a long time that they've been able to, obviously they're scoring, but their goaltending's keeping them in these games too. So I put a lot of credit into the goaltending when I write up my articles for these guys, and there's good reason for it too. So we've taken a look at the series, talked about it a bit. Going into our picks here, I've seen a lot of Stockton Heat hockey this season, and I find it hard not to go with them for both games this weekend, especially coming off of 10-1. Just going to throw that in there again.
That is fair. For me, I'm trusting in a Dr. Jekyll appearance from Tucson this weekend, because it does seem like at least once a weekend they put on a performance. You're like, how is this the team that also just lost last night, 7-2? But they do it. It is truly one of the most ridiculous things about Tucson over the last, year plus is they, every once in a while, they just put on an absolute ass beating on a very good team. Now, I'm not saying they're going to, win a 7-2 game here, but I think a Dr. Jekyll appearance is certainly in the cards for Tucson. So I will take a surprise Tucson win on Saturday. Stockton will take the other. The model agrees with Paige. Shocker, even though I program it. Stockton is a 53.7% favorite in each individual game. But let's get to break here. After the break, we will get to the speed round. If you were just here for Stockton and Tucson, thank you for stopping by. But please do subscribe for us wherever you're listening to, so you get episodes in a timely fashion. If nothing else, we will be here to break down the game on Tuesday and talk about what happened over the weekend and why it happened. You can also check us out on social media where we post fun memes like King Kong dressed in a Stockton Heat jersey. So you should probably at least go check that out. That was very fun to make. So you can find all of that at our Linktree page at linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills. We will be right back. All right, let's get to it. It is time for the speed round. All right, first up, weekend series. Syracuse at Charlotte, Friday, Saturday. I'm taking Syracuse. Syracuse looks bad right now. I'm taking Charlotte. Paige.
I trust your judgment on that one. I'll go for the Charlotte sweep as well.
Rockford at Henderson. Very interesting interdivisional matchup here, Friday and Saturday. I'm going to take the split and say Henderson on Friday, Rockford on Saturday. I think Rockford might be real.
I really like Henderson's play, what I've seen of them this year, so I am going to guess Henderson for both in that series as well.
All right, Abbotsford at San Jose, Saturday, Sunday. The Vander Kane sighting gets San Jose a split in my mind, with Dakota taking Saturday.
I also feel like these guys are pretty evenly matched, so I'm going to go with Abbotsford Saturday and San Jose Sunday.
All right, Milwaukee at Iowa, Friday, Saturday.
I'm going to take Iowa for both in that one. I have I have a little inkling on that one. We'll see how that goes.
Milwaukee riding momentum from a big series sweep. I think they take Friday, but Iowa rebounds the next night. I'm going to take a split here. All right, Chicago at Texas, Saturday and Sunday. Texas is also not looking very hot right now. I'll take Chicago in both.
I'm going to go with Chicago on Saturday, and I'm going to give Texas the benefit of the doubt, go for the underdog in this one, and pick them with a comeback win on Sunday.
All right, Bakersfield at Colorado, Friday and Saturday. The Eagles are getting loaded up as the Avs get healthy. I'm taking the Eagles in a sweep. Paige, what say you?
Eagles have been very good, so I'm going to go with them on Friday, but I can see Bakersfield coming back with a bounce back on Saturday. I'm going to go split on that one.
All right, last weekend series here. San Diego at Ontario, Friday, Saturday. I want to believe in the Gulls because I picked them in the preseason to crush this division, so I'm going to say they get one of these games. I will say Gulls Friday, Reigns Saturday.
I disagree and say Ontario's looked like a pretty heavy team this season, so I'm going with the Reign for both games this weekend.
All right, Friday, Cleveland at Utica. Utica. This is a Utica world. We just live in it. Paige, what do you say?
Can't argue that one. Let's go with Utica.
Belleville at Providence on Friday. It seems like the P Bruins are doing better than the B Sens. I think I'm going to go Providence here. Paige?
I'm going to agree with you on that one. I am not too crazy about how Belleville's been playing this season, so definitely Providence.
Toronto at Springfield. I feel like Springfield has got to have St. Louis call up to catch up to them at some point. I'm taking the Marlies.
I feel like we're agreeing a lot here, but I'm going to take the Marlies as well. I've liked their play as of late, and I liked their play last year as well.
Saturday, Hershey at Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I am sticking to Wilkes-Barre Scranton as a fake team. Hershey all the way.
Hershey for me too.
Toronto at Bridgeport. I'm still a believer in the Marlies and still not that much of a believer in Bridgeport. Despite a Utica upset, I don't think they're going to be able to gum it up enough to make Toronto sweat. I'm taking the Marlies.
As well, Toronto's a tough team.
All right, Providence at Springfield. Once again, I think Springfield is going to feel the burn of the Blues calling up a bunch of their guys. I'm taking Providence here. Paige, what say you?
I'm going to disagree on that one. I think Springfield may still have a few assets that can pull out a win on this game.
All right, Sunday, we have Belleville at Bridgeport. This has got to be a recipe for an ugly game, but I'm going to take Belleville.
I got to agree there, but I think Belleville will have a little bit of an edge, so I'm also going to agree Belleville for this game.
All right, Toronto at Providence. This is the, I guess, junior rivalry of the NHL version, but unlike a Game 7, I'm going to go Toronto here and say the Marlies take it.
going to take the other end on that. I know I've been talking up Toronto, but I think 3 in a row is a little bit too much, so I'm going to give Providence the benefit of the doubt on Sunday.
Springfield at Wilkes-Barre Scranton to close the weekend. Wilkes-Barre Scranton fake team. Springfield pulls through.
Let's go with Springfield as well to wrap that one up.
All right, and that will do it for the speed round. Paige, I will let you do the honors of kicking off the outro here.
Alrighty, well, thanks for joining us, guys. That's it for the show. Thanks for watching and or listening to the Calder Farmstead. We're part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and a number of other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website and enjoy the content.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe and get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, or Audible on Amazon or Amazon Music, apparently that's a thing, please rate and review the podcast. You're able to do so on those areas. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode, go crazy, click all the buttons. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION. So you can make music for you too. Paige, where can people find you?
Well, my name is Paige Siewert. You can find me on Twitter at flames_update. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network. I'll be under the AHL section by Stockton Heat, and that'll be on www.fullpresshockey.com. Sean, where can people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien 81. That's SeanObrien 81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien _81. Both of those are personal accounts. My Twitter more hockey related. My Instagram more random things around me, mostly my cute and adorable dog Parker. You can find all of my stats work, including team outlooks, projected standings, player maps, that PDO thing we talked a bunch about. You can find all of that at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. Paige, take us home.
Yeah, thanks for spending some time with us, guys, and thanks for tuning into the show, and keep your stick on the ice.